Today we are starting Unit 4 Function in C Programming. In the previous unit, we learned about decision making statement like if else and switch and looping statement such as for, while and do while. Now we will move to the important concept that help us to write C program in a more organized and efficient way. In this unit, we study six important topics. The first topic is concept of function. We'll understand what function is, why the function are used, and how they divide a large program into smaller and manageable parts. We will also learn the basic structure of function and how function are called during program execution. The second topic is advantage of a modular function. Instead of writing the entire function in one place, we divide it into smaller module or function. This makes program easier to understand, test, debug and maintain. Modular programming also allows us to reuse code, reducing unnecessary repetition. The third topic is standard library function. C provides many built-in functions such as printf, scanf, sqrt, strlen, and many others. These functions are already available in different header files, so we can use them directly without writing their code ourselves. The fourth topic is user-defined function. These are the functions created by the programmer to perform a specific task. We will learn how to define a function, how to pass the argument, return values, and how to call the function from the main program. This is one of the most important concepts in C programming. The fifth topic is recursive function. A recursive function is a function that calls itself to solve a problem. We will understand how recursion works, the importance of the base condition, and solve simple example related with the recursion function. Finally, we will study scope of variable and storage classes. This topic explains where the variable can be accessed and how long they exist during the program execution. We will also learn about the different storage classes in C, such as auto, register, static, and external, and understand their uses. By the end of this unit, you will be able to write a well-structured C program using function, improve code reliability through modular programming, and we had to use both library and user-defined function efficiently. Understand recursion and manage variables correctly using different storage classes. Now, let's begin with first topic, the concept of C programming. Now, let's begin with the first topic of this unit, Introduction to Function. A function is a block of code that performs a specific task. Instead of writing the same statement every time a particular task needs to be performed, we can place those statements inside a function and call that function whenever required. Think of a function like a machine. You give a specific task and that machine perform that task, and then the program continue with the next instruction. Each function is designed to perform one well-defined operation. Now let's understand the points shown on this slide. The first point is the function are enclosed with curly braces. Every function has a body and all the statements that belong to the function are written inside these opening and closing braces. The braces clearly indicate where the function starts and where it ends. The next point says that a C program is made of one or more function. A program may contain only the main function for every simple application, but as program become larger, the programmer create additional function to perform different tasks. Each function is written separately and can be called whenever a task needs to be executed. The third point is that every C program must have a main function. This is the most important function in C program because it acts as a starting point of execution. Without the main function, the computer does not know where to begin running the program. So every C program must include it. Finally, the next point is program execution. Always start with from the main function, and from there it can call other function wherever needed. For example, if a program need a display message, calculate a result and print output, the main function can call separate function for each of these tasks. After a call function finishes its work, control return back to the main function and execution continue with the next statement. So remember all these points. First one is function is a block of code that perform a particular task. The statement of function are always enclosed with opening and closing curly brace. A C program consists of one or more function. Every C program must contain a main function. Program execution always begin with the main and it can call other function whenever required. Now, let's discuss the type of function in C programming. Function in C are mainly divided into two types, standard library function and user-defined function. Let's begin with standard library function. It is also called as a built-in function. These are predefined functions provided by the C standard library. They are already written and tested, so programmer can use them directly without writing their own code. These functions are commonly used for tasks such as input and output, also for mathematical calculation and string operation. To use this function, we must include the appropriate header file uh, using the hash include directives. For example, stdio.h header file, standard input output header file, which provide like printf, scanf for displaying output and taking input. The math.h header file contains mathematical function such as square root function, power function for calculating power. Simply string header file includes string function like strlen to find the length of a string, strcpy to copy one string to another. The second type is user-defined function. As the name suggests, these functions are created by the programmer according to the requirement of the program. Whenever a built-in function cannot perform a specific task, we can write our own function to solve the problem. A user-defined function performs particular operation and can be called whenever operation is needed. This helps organize the program into smaller sections and allow the same function to be used multiple times whenever we require. So remember that C provide two types of function. First one is standard library and second one is user defined function. Uh, and user defined function is created by the programmer and standard library function already built into the C library. Now let's learn about the details in about user defined function. A user defined function is a function that is created by the programmer to perform a specific task according to the requirement of the program. Unlike standard library function, these functions are written by us whenever we need to custom functionality. A user defined function has three main parts. First one is function declaration, known as function prototype. It tells the compiler about the function before it is used. The declarations specify the function name, return type, and the parameter it accepts, but it does not contain the actual code. The second part is function definition. This is where the actual implementation of the function is written. It contains all the statements that perform the required task. The function definition begins with the return type, followed by the function name, and then we have to write down the parameters. Inside the curly braces, we write the declaration, executable statement, and finally return value if the function has a return type. The general syntax of the function definition is return type. Then after that, add on function name, and in parentheses we have to include the parameters, and then followed by the function body, which is enclosed within the open and closing curly brace. Inside the body, we can declare variable, write the required statement, and use the return statement to send back to the calling function whenever necessary. The third part is function call. A function call is used to execute the function whenever the function name is written with parenthesis. The program transfer control to that function, execute all its statement and then return control to the point from where it is called. So remember that every user-defined function consists of main three important parts. First one is function declaration, second one is function definition, and the third one is a function call. Function definition which contains the actual code and the function call which execute the function whenever it is needed. Now let's understand this function definition diagram step by step. This diagram shows the different part of a user-defined function using a simple name sum. Sum is the name of the function. At the top we have the return type which is as an integer. This tells that the function call return an integer value after completing the execution. Next is the function name which is sum, and in bracket we have to write down the parameters which we want to pass to the function. Here we have to pass the two parameter a and b of type integer. Next is after that the function name come after the parameter list. Inside the function body we had to declare a one variable c which is of type integer. This is a local declaration. The variable c is created only for use inside the function and cannot be accessible outside it. The next statement is c is equal to a plus b. This is executable statement where the actual work of the function is performed. It adds two input value and store the result in local variable c. Finally, we have return c statement. This returns the value stored in a C back to the function that calls sum. As soon as return statement is executed, the function end and control back to the calling function. So this diagram clearly show the complete structure of a function, including the return type, function name, parameter list, local declaration, statement, and the return statement. Understanding this component is essential because every user-defined function follows the same basic structure. Now let's understand function declaration in C programming. A function declaration is also known as function prototype. Provide information about a function to the compiler before the function is actually used. It tells the compiler that a particular function exists and can be called later in the program. A function declaration specifies three important things: return type, function name, parent parameter list. However, it does not contain the actual code of the function. The implementation is written separately in the function definition. Another important point is that a function declaration always ends with a semicolon because it is only declaration, not the function body. The general syntax for a function declaration is return type, function name, and in parentheses write down the number of argument which we want to define at the moment of the function call. For example, the declaration int sum and in we have to pass the two parameter int and in the two parameters which is of type integer, which tells the compiler that there is a function named sum which accept two integer argument and return integer value. Similarly, int square int function declare a function named square that accept one integer parameter and return an integer. When the compiler encounters a function call before the actual function definition, it uses the function declaration to check whether the function name, return type, and the parameter are correct. This helps to detect programming errors during compilation. So remember that a function declaration is also called prototype function. It inform to the compiler that the function specifies return type, name, and parameter, and ends with semicolon and does not contain the function body. In the next slide, we learn about the function definition in detail. We learn function declaration, function definition. Now let's understand the third part is user defined function, which is the function call. A function call is used to execute a function whenever a task is required in a program. Simply define a function is not enough. The function will execute only when it is called. When a function is called, the program transfer control to that function. The function perform the required operation and after complete the execution, control return to the point from where the function are called. Okay, a function call can also pass argument to the function. These arguments provide the input value needed for function to perform its task. Therefore, this argument is called as an actual argument. The number and type of argument should be match the parameter defined in the function. If the function if the function return a value, that value can be stored in a variable and used later in the program. The general syntax for function call is function name and then write down the number of parameters. If the function return a value, we can write it as value is equal to function name and number of parameters. Now look at the example shown in below. Value is equal to max. In bracket we have to pass two parameter a comma b. Here max is a function being called. The value a and b are passed as an argument to the function. The function compare these two value and return the larger value. The return value is then stored in the variable value. So remember that a function call is responsible for executing a function. It can pass the required argument to the function, receive the return value if any, and then continue executing the remaining statement in the program. Now let's learn one simple example of a add to number using function. First, we have to include the files. Hash include standard input output dot h file. Then after that, we have to declare the function. The declaration of the function is first we have to write down the return type. We want to add a two number and return a value integer. Therefore, I write down return type int. The function name is add and we have to pass the two parameter of type integer. So I declare function over here. Then after that, we have to write down the main function. Within the main function, we have to call the add function. We want to add two numbers, therefore I given a and b and answer will be stored into the c variable. Here directly I initialize the value of a is 10, b is I initialize 20. Okay, I want to call the function the function name is add and want to pass the value 10 and 20 which is stored into the variable a and b. So in the parameter I have passed a comma b and also this function return a value that is the answer which we want to store into the c. So therefore I write down c is equal to add a comma b. After calculation or after calling the function, we want to print the value of c. So I write down here the message addition is. I want to print the value of c. C is integer data types. Therefore, specifier I use percentage %d and print the value of c. Now this main function is completed. Look at here. I have declare function over here. I have call function here and now after the main I want to define that function. The function return a value integer, therefore I write down int. The function is name is add and I want to receive the value a and b. So I have received the value a into the variable x and b into the variable y. I have to write down here within the curly brace. We have to declare a local variable z. Now I want to perform the addition. So therefore I write down z is equal to x plus y. Whatever the value will be added we want to return that value. So I have write down here the return statement, and I have return z. The return value z will be stored into the variable c, and the answer here, the print function will print the value of c. Look at here. I have declare function over here, call function here, and define here. I want to run it. Okay, look at here, the answer is display. Addition is 30.